Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to episode 336 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. It's Blue Jays Talk for All coming at you. The season is over. We'll break all of that down for you, and we've got a very important announcement as well for you. So lots to talk about. Whoa, there we go. Had some technical difficulty. Let's try that again. I'm your host, as always, Sean Doyle. Happy to be back talking Blue Jays baseball with you. We took a little break there, and we'll explain that right off the top here. But before we get into that, obviously I'm going to bring in my co-host this week, the one and only Karen Suter. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, Sean.
All right, so season's over, Karen. A lot of anger and frustration and everything out there, and we'll get into all of that as the Blue Jays have gone all their separate ways, and the Twins have moved on. And I'm one person who said, "Oh man, I hope they get the Twins." So I'm kind of kicking myself there. But before we get into that, we did take a bit of a break here on the Jays from the Couch podcast, and some of you may know, but we're going to take a moment here. We had to take a break. Those of you who are regular watchers and listeners of Jays from the Couch, you'll know our beloved Steve Feck. And not too long ago, Steve suffered a massive stroke and has been recovering ever since. It's been slow, Karen, but he is making positive progress. Last we heard, so he keeps fighting. But Karen, we kind of felt it wasn't really, not necessarily appropriate. I don't know if that's the right word, but we definitely felt like we couldn't necessarily do the show without Steve, right?
Yeah. I mean, for the first little while there, it just really felt wrong. I mean, it's been the three of us for however long, and it would have felt very strange to go on and try to do a show, not really knowing what was going on with him, what the outcome was going to be, and so yeah, we agreed to put it on hold for the time being.
Yeah, and that's the only thing we could have done, really. We've got comments here. Dulcimeris watching on YouTube. Please send my regards and best wishes to Feck, and we will absolutely pass those on as well. And Dulcimeris, I have your email, which we will get to here at the end, and I'm very excited about. But yeah, so we did take a little bit of a break there, and probably, I mean, somebody will say that it was poor timing with playoffs and everything going on, but again, there are more important things in life than baseball, than covering the baseball and talking Blue Jays and stuff like that, right? Like, Steve's part of our family here at Jays from the Couch, and he's done a lot of excellent stuff here, as well as for other outlets like Slasher Sports and so on. So very important to us, and we're all praying and hoping that he continues, I guess, in his progress, he's heading in the right direction, and as long as he keeps going there, we're happy, right? Okay, so Karen, we've got a number of things to talk about here. So first of all, the season's over, and what really stands out to me is when it ended last season in blowing it to the Mariners, I really didn't think it could hurt any more than that. And yet, Karen, I actually think this postseason was even worse. Even worse. But before we get to the postseason, let's just talk about the regular season, the first 162 games. I guess, Karen, are you disappointed? Like, that's the first thing we should probably talk about. Just before we even talk about the playoffs, were you disappointed in the Blue Jays season?
That I have to say yes. I mean, in the off season, going into the start of the regular season, of course, there's all kinds of predictions. Lots of people had the Jays winning the AL East, and yeah, I mean, I definitely thought it was possible. we all know what they did this past off season. Their focus was on improving run prevention, and they did that. They were successful about that. But then, and I mean, even if in the off season with the moves that they made, I felt that they had sacrificed too much of their offense to try to get better on defense and pitching wise. And, it may not be. There's been plenty of analysis about, well, if they had still had Gurriel and Hernandez, that they would have scored a little bit more, maybe not a lot more. That's assuming that they each did in Toronto what they did in Seattle and Arizona, which we don't know for sure.
Mhm.
That would
Mhm.
have been the case. It could have been better, could have been worse. But whatever the reason, the incumbents not doing as well, which I mean, it could be partially an indirect result of losing two big bats. I mean, when you've got a stacked lineup, who do you pitch to? Whereas if you remove a couple of big threats with the bats, then they can go right after the guys that are left. So that's one thing that could have been a part of the subpar results by the remaining players. But whatever the reason was for it, they didn't do what a lot of people thought they were going to do. They finished third. What did they have? 89 wins in the regular season. I mean, on
Yeah.
paper, you really thought they would do better, and they didn't. And they kind of just snuck into a third wild card there. So,
Yeah, just snuck in. And I think that so like the first thing is they didn't win the division, which I thought they would. I really did. I got New York and Boston right. And I thought that Toronto would be a little bit better than Tampa Bay, but I did not see Baltimore coming. But regardless, so you can say, well, Baltimore, nobody saw that coming. They ran away with the division, and they absolutely did. But more importantly, Toronto didn't help themselves at all. I think there was, the pitching was great, and I want to talk about that here in a minute. But the defense, great, but the offense was so inconsistent, beyond inconsistent. If there's a new word for the inconsistency that the Blue Jays offense showed this season. But also, Karen, things like base running, and I know that under the playoff microscope, base running is what killed them. But overall, generally speaking, that didn't get much better for them. And what really, I think, how do I say this without kind of like going crazy with it? There's a mentality among the club that seems impossible to shake, right? It's the hard-nosed, always thinking kind of Kevin Biggio-esque style of baseball that seems to be missing. So I guess, Karen, where do you put the blame as far as what didn't work? I know, like, I want to talk about staff. That we're going to talk about coaching staff and stuff like that. But if you could say it was one thing, is it inconsistent hitting? Is it horrible base running? Is it the mental side of the game that just needs to be fixed? Where do you, or is it a combination of all of it?
um, I mean, to a greater or lesser extent, yeah. I mean, what they said they wanted to improve on last off season, while the pitching and the defense overall did get better, the base running really didn't overall. And I mean, that did not help matters. But I really don't think that base running was the team's downfall. I mean, either in the regular season, or, since we're going to get to it, in the playoffs, that bad base running was not what did them in. It didn't help, but that wasn't the deal
Mm-hmm.
breaker there. Like I said, in a nutshell, the way I look at the Jays regular season is this: when they won games, more often than not, it was because of pitching and defense and just enough timely hitting to get it done. When they didn't win, it's because they couldn't manage to score enough runs, that they just weren't consistent enough with the bats. And
Yeah, and Dulcimeris agrees as well. The offense disappointed me, as it did pretty much everyone. Based on job descriptions, I believe hitting strategist Dave Hudgens had more responsibility than hitting coach Guillermo Martinez. And he continues, maybe if Hudgens didn't goof around in the dugout on social media during game time, that looks so bad visually, based on what his job is and how situational hitting and plate approach had looked. Agreed. That was one of the things that sometimes you'll see really good at bats, Karen, and then other times you just don't know what they were, if it was just like they were looking the complete opposite of everything they were getting. I don't know what it was, but man, it was bad. The hitting, the offense was kind of awful. So Karen, before we move into the coaching and stuff, we should probably talk about, because it wasn't all doom and gloom, right? There were some positives to take away from this season, and I think the biggest one has to be the starting rotation. You had 4 starters all season. Excuse me, made all their starts and all had an ERA under 4. Like that's pretty special. So for me, the highlight is that starting rotation, and the bounce back of Barrios and Kikuchi as well. But when you look at it, Karen, what is it for you that stands out as the positives that this team has to build on?
Yeah, absolutely. You didn't say hi to Honey.
Hello, Honey. I wasn't sure which one it was.
Yes.
And I didn't want to make you uncomfortable just by throwing out a hi, Honey.
No, this cat is Honey. We adopted 2 kittens back in August, so yes, we love them and they're a handful. Why don't you go do something?
Honey's going to be a star.
Yeah. So, yeah, the question, I mean, definitely the pitching, the bullpen certainly rounded into form overall in the season. But yeah, that rotation, that was unbelievable. I mean, there were stats all over the place about how those 4 were the best among 30 teams in baseball. And on one hand, that's fantastic. As a Jays fan, I really loved seeing that. The 4 of them, I mean, they're as a group, the 4 of them are the biggest reason why the Blue Jays had any success at all this season. And it's kind of, I hate to take a positive and put a negative spin on it, but can you imagine if Alek Manoah had been anywhere near what he had been in 2021 and 2022 to go with what the 4 of them did this past season?
Right, and that was going to be the next thing I said. Absolutely. So Alek Manoah, if he didn't even have to repeat his previous season, but if he had even just pitched at 500, the quote unquote 500, his ERA, if it had been under 4, just like there's 10 more wins for the Jays maybe, and then we can also talk about Karen, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and George Springer, if they had performed, if Matt Chapman had been consistent all season, just what could have been, right? But Karen, what do you do about Alek Manoah? What is going on here? Is he at this point, considering the I'm not even going to be demoted and that whole drama that ensued, would you say he even has like a lock on a rotation spot, or is he really going to have to earn that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That this is the other one. This is Sunny.
Honey and Sunny. Perfect.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's so much secrecy around Manoah and what didn't happen, but particularly the second time that he was sent down and taking as long as he did to report to Buffalo. I mean, I don't know. It sounds like there might have been some bad blood there. And if there was, is the situation for the Blue Jays even fixable? And I mean, I wonder, I hate to say this, because in the 2 years in 2021 and 2022, I became a Manoah fan. What little has been known about him publicly, certainly him as a pitcher, and I wanted him to be around long term. But if the Blue Jays feel that the relationship is damaged beyond repair, I mean, do they try to get what they can for him in the off season? And it's unfortunate. Well, for a number of reasons, it's unfortunate if they do try to trade him away because they're not getting anywhere near top value back for him.
Mm,
I
hmm
mean, he's got 4 more years, team control. I'm sure there's an organization out there somewhere who thinks, you know what, he had a first good, his first 2 years were pretty good. I bet there's something that can be done to fix him, and they'd be willing to pay a reasonable price to get him. So I'm not
hmm
saying they can't get anything of value back from him, but if they had, not that they would have done this because the fan base would have gone nuts, but if they had even entertained trading him a year ago, just think about the return they could have gotten at that time, and how much his stock has undoubtedly fallen because of
Oh,
everything
yeah.
that happened on in the last year, both on the field and off. So
And it's fascinating, right? Because I guess before we even had this conversation, the idea of possibly potentially trading Alec Manoah seemed ridiculous. Like even partway through the season when he was struggling, obviously that drama between not reporting for duty, as it were, like, whew, it's hard to imagine, but that may actually make it more and more of a possibility as opposed to the insanity that we would have thought it was just a few months ago, right?
yeah,
Um, and of course, a starting pitcher who has the somewhat of a track record at the major league level, has had success at the major league level with that many years of control. It's going to have some value there. And if the Blue Jays feel that the relationship is beyond repair, then you know what, maybe it might be worth exploring, right? Because they need some help, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But Karen, let's talk about the postseason quickly. Oh, everybody was talking about the Jose Barrios removing him from the game when he was clearly coasting, and whose fault that was. Did the call come from John Schneider? Did it come from a whole bunch of people in a room, including Ross Atkins? Did it come from Mars? Where did this plan come from? There was Vladdy getting picked off at second. Children are playing this game all around the world and are hearing, don't get picked off, don't get picked off, don't get picked off. And you're playing at the biggest moment in your entire season and you get picked off. Bo Bichette trying way too hard to score from third to the game before in game one. So, Karen, there was a lot to not like about these two games. Was it hard for you to find just one thing, or have you kind of like isolated what was the real issue?
I mean, the the biggest issue, well, once again, just like it was during the regular season, is the lack of ability to score runs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at least something that management could have managed much better was not taking Barrios out of that game because he was dealing. And then you can separate and say, okay, but the Jays scored 0 runs all game. So would it had they left Barrios in, would it have been a different outcome in terms of the final score? And this is what I have to say to that. Obviously, we'll never know, but there is a school of thought that says once you allowed those 2 runs, it really changed the momentum. I mean, the guys in that dugout know that they have struggled to score runs all season. You've got a pitcher out there that's dealing, and you take him out, and now you've got to play catch up against Sonny Gray, who has been one of the better pitchers in baseball this season. So as much as that was a mental hurdle, it just got that much higher.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so we can set aside the just for a second, like you don't hit, you don't win. Like you have to score runs, right? Like that's the reason why they lost the series. They score one run in two games. You're not going to win. It's simple. So that's like, but if you leave that aside here for a second, what I noticed from the Barrios thing was the player's body language as soon as Schneider stepped out of the dugout. Bobachek coming right up to him and telling him, and then he Barrios had comments for the players, and then even when Schneider was waiting there, it was so awkward. It was so awkward just watching because he knew that the players weren't happy. So that for me, I think is fascinating because now he's going to have to manage a dugout where the players are upset with the decision, wherever it came from. Barrios looks like he appears to have said, "I know it's not your call." Um,
He did.
so wherever it comes from, though, Karen, it sends a very interesting message to the players that you have, particularly when those players um, have a heightened sense of self worth and egos, so to speak, right? So what is your make of like what is the impact going to be moving forward in your mind?
um, I I don't know. I mean, again, like next year is still a ways away. So I'm not sure that if the Jays season was still continuing, maybe it would be something. And yeah, it still could be come 2024 spring training and then the regular season. I don't know. I guess my feeling is that far into the future, it probably won't make a difference. And don't forget, there's probably going to be at least some significant turnover between now and then. So it's not like the same 26 guys are all going to be back.
No, but that's exactly where I was going when I asked that question is like players talk, right? And players want to play for managers who are players managers, and if you've just pissed off this many players, they're going to talk. So I guess Karen, do you see it, and maybe you don't, but do you see it having an impact on potentially signing some of those free agents to replace who's leaving?
I mean, a number of people have speculated that. I really don't want to allow myself to go there. There's so much reason for not happiness in and around the Blue Jays and for Blue Jays fans. I don't really want to add that to that as far as that
Mm,
being a part of my mind. But I'm not saying those people are wrong. It's
mhm.
certainly possible. I mean, Ben Nicholson Smith was somewhere lately, whether it was sports highlight shows or Twitter or somewhere, and he said he couldn't. I forget how he phrased it, but basically he had the opposite view. He said, I don't see the Blue Jays having any trouble signing free agents, assuming that they offer something good as far as money and term.
Mm,
Like, okay, I mean, if money talks, if
yeah.
the biggest thing that they want is in their bank account, and the Blue Jays have it to offer, and don't forget they have a fair bit of money coming off the books this season. So
Hmm.
they can even
Right.
if they don't want to increase their payroll, even if they can just keep it the same, they are going to have money to spend on someone.
Hmm. Hmm. So then it leads me to the next little topic that I had here. But Rachel is watching at home on Facebook, and she says it felt like for 2 years in a row the management was happy with a wild card game. They never worked on getting better at the stuff they have struggled with. Get on base, do not have to slug it out every time. And Karen, that's actually something Rachel brings up an excellent point that I've been kind of like mulling over in my head, and that is that it feels like this just get in mentality is all this front office is really concerned with because they're not comfortable with random, right? Because you can't plan for random. It would be called plandom at that point. So, yup, I did that. Anyway, but you can't. and their thing is plan, control, and have the statistical measurements for everything, and you can't do that necessarily in the postseason. So it feels to me, and as Rachel said, that you just get in. And I'm pretty sure just a few years ago that was actually said by either Ross and or Mark Shapiro as well. It's this just get in. And the other thing too is if you think about it, Karen, 162 game season, that's 81 home games. That's a whole lot of money if you're putting on a team that can be competitive. They don't have to win in the postseason because, yes, there's added revenue there, but really, as a business, the meat and potatoes of your revenue is in season. So to me, and this is where my tinfoil hat is on, and you have to, kind of talk me out of it, but it feels like, yes, you can say you want to bring championships and all of that stuff, but you can't guarantee it. So let's make sure we can at least get in. Is that, tell me I'm crazy.
I don't know that you're crazy. I don't see it that way. I think they did what they thought was shooting for the stars. I think they did what they thought would win them the AL East and get them a deep October run. It's just that the results in many ways did not pan out the way they thought that it would. The way that they plan it, it's sort of like what I said about, so between 2016 and 2020, the Blue Jays, well, after 2016, before 2020, the Blue Jays had 3 straight years of missing the playoffs, but it's not accurate to say that that was 3 straight rebuilding years. In 2017 and 2018, when you look at their roster, those were not rebuilding teams. Those were teams that they put together trying to win, but they did not succeed at winning. So I think, and 2019 was a legitimate rebuilding year when you look at like wall-to-wall rookies.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to me, I don't think that they were aiming to, like, even if we can only be the 3rd wild card, it's fine as long as we just get in. I don't think that that's what they intended. It's just the result. So
Right,
it's
right.
it's easy to conclude that that's what they were aiming for because that's what they got.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there's no way they're going to say, no, we were just aiming to get in. We were not aiming for a World Series.
Yeah,
They're
no.
never going to say that. So, yeah,
But no, I
all
mean,
you can do is, yeah.
yeah, and it's like they were aiming to get in. Well, the theory to me is they were aiming to get in because once you're in the door, anything can happen. I mean, there are wild
Mm,
card teams who have gotten to the World Series. There are wild card teams who have won the World Series. So the
mm-hmm,
fact that they got in as a wild card, that didn't preclude them from going far.
mm-hmm. Nope, that's right. Yep.
But their performance, on the other hand, their
Yes,
inability to
that
hit and
absolutely
stay
did.
runs.
So, Karen, then what do they do this offseason? There's going to be some turnover. Like you've got just going quickly right around. You've got Whit Merrifield. You've got Matt Chapman, Kevin Kiermaier. Like there's a lot to kind of figure out for this team. And so it's going to be interesting, right? Because you have to, not only do you have to just replace those guys, but clearly the offense needs to be better. So it'll be interesting. But when you look at this, Karen, what is it that they absolutely have to do?
Oh, they have to improve the offense. That's the number one thing that they need. And I mean, do you want to what do you want to do? Do you want to talk about a wish list for players? Do you want to talk about a wish list for coaches? Should we do it one at a time and go back and forth? Like how do you want to manage this?
Well, I mean, so let's just first of all, do you think that the coaching staff should return? I mean, obviously, Luis Rivera is not. So that's one of thing off of my list. But where do you make changes, if any, to this coaching staff?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had a wish list for the off season, and replacing Luis Rivera was absolutely on it. So all the best to you. I hope you have an amazing retirement. See you later. No, no more bad
Right.
sends from him.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, for some time now, I've been saying that I really want them to do something different as far as their hitting coach. So I mean, both Guillermo Martinez and Dave Hudgens. I think you know what. Say bye to the two of them. Excuse me. Get somebody in who has had success at the major league level, who knows how to hit. Major league pitching knows what to do, how to come up with a strategy, how to adjust if in game, if your strategy isn't working, what you should do, how what you should look for, and all of that. I mean, there are guys out there you look at in 2020 when the Blue Jays made the very expanded playoffs in that 60 game season due to COVID. They brought in Dante Bichette because the hitters were struggling and they needed somebody to help out. And this is somebody who's played Major League Baseball and was a good hitter. And he managed, like, I just coincidentally, when he came in, all of a sudden a bunch of them started hitting better. And really, their strength. I mean, it's funny. They were a borderline playoff team, which was it was a big step forward after the
Yeah.
rebuilding season 67 and 95 of 2019. But I mean, in 2020, their strength was hitting Hyunjin Ryu and to a point their bullpen, the very big bullpen that they had with all those guys and the expanded roster there too.
Yeah.
But their defense and base running was laughable.
Mm.
It it really was. But I mean, they had to bring someone in to help with the hitting. Then
Yeah.
2021, I mean, there were key hitters that were struggling. And apparently, per Jesse Barfield, he was able to help each of them individually. And they all started doing better. And instead of thanking him for it and maybe giving him a position within the organization, apparently, he was given heck by Blue Jays management. And I hear things like that and I just go ballistic. Like, why is it about egos? Why is it about politics? Prioritize winning.
Mm.
Unless you're talking about terrible people who have broken some laws or whatever, like people for human reasons that you don't want anything to do with. Other than that, prioritize winning. And
Absolutely.
it seems like in a lot of ways they really haven't done that. So I just like the whole time Martinez and Hudgens have been in the positions they've been, they don't seem to be getting optimal results. And I
Right.
really think it's time for a change.
So Dulcimeris agrees, says new hitting strategist and hitting coach would be cool. Devon White, Edwin Encarnacion, and Victor Martinez are already on the payroll as minor league coaches or advisors. He says private hitting coach and Jays legend Jesse Barfield or longtime Team Canada hitting coach Larry Walker would be great. And he says Vlad hit much better the year he worked with Barfield. And then finally, former Mets hitting coach Chili Davis was let go because he didn't want to go 100% all in on analytics. I like him because of that. How about him? Well, that means he won't be on Ross Atkins' list. I mean, let's be real, right? But any of those, and I, I I was just thinking about watching the evolution of Edwin Encarnacion as a major league hitter, and man, like he at near the end of his career, he would put together excellent at bats. And that's what they need, right? Those just keep fighting and fighting until you get one that you can to do some damage with. So, okay, hitting coaches, I think we can both agree. Sayonara. So then, Karen, are there
Yeah.
any other
Okay, can
pitching?
I add one more to that? And any
Yes, please
honestly,
do.
any of those names would make me quite happy. And there's one more that I think his hat should be in the ring, and that is AAA hitting coach Matt Haig, because
Mm,
apparently he did a lot. The guys that came up from AAA and who basically kept the Jays season afloat in August when so many of the regulars were not doing much of anything. And out of the
Mm,
woodwork came Davis Schneider and, to a lesser extent, Ernie Clement and
hmm.
Spencer Horwitz, and they all sang this guy's praises, that he did so much to help them. So
Yeah.
that's someone who has actually gotten results with hitters.
Right. Right. All right. So, do you keep the pitching coaching, all the other coaching, like Don Mattingly, even like, do you keep these guys around?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything particular against any of the others. I mean, you can't argue with whatever it was that Pete Walker did this year, and overall the things that he's done in his tenure as Blue Jays hitting coach. There's always been so many positives about him, and the results that he gets. And then Don Mattingly, I don't know. I mean, there's different opinions out there on him. I honestly don't know what what he really did this year. I'm not saying he did nothing. I'm saying it wasn't all that visible to me as a fan. So he might have made a very positive contribution. He might not have. I don't have much of an
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. And I was going to say the same thing. I don't think there's any kind of body of evidence that we could point to one way or another to indicate whether or not Mattingly has done a great job or not.
Yeah.
Okay. So, other than the hitting coaches, everybody else stays. Congratulations. You don't have to clean out your lockers. All right, Karen, players. We need third base is going to have to be a solution.
Yeah.
Do you see? I don't see that coming from within. I don't see them throwing the job at somebody or banking on somebody from within to fill that spot next season. They're going to need to sort out second base. Is it just Kevin Biggio's job? Does Davis Schneider get a long look? Whit Merrifield's gone, so there's a lot there. Kevin Kiermaier leaves center field. I assume we moved Dalton Varsho over to center field, and that means a left fielder. A left fielder might be easier to find than a top defensive center fielder. So I think that Karen, how do you make any sense of where to target first?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, of all the guys that are free agents eligible, and I'm including Whit Merrifield and his mutual option. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
Merrifield, there's Chapman, there's Kiermaier, there's Belt, who has talked about retirement, there's Ryu, and unfortunately there's Hicks. There's a $9 million club option on Chad Green, which Blue Jays, if you don't exercise it, yeah, you better, is all I
Mm,
have to say. So of those six, the one I would really like most to retain is Jordan Hicks. Unfortunately, I'm hearing that might not happen. And then of the others, I mean, Matt Chapman, we were told early in the season, no, he's not coming back after this season. And honestly, after the way he hits, after being player of the month in April, I mean,
yeah.
his defense will be missed, but you need more production from your corner positions, and they just weren't getting it from him. So I mean, he'll probably be gone. Merrifield will probably be gone. I mean, I could see Kiermaier in the mix. It might not happen, but I could see bringing him back in the mix with a left fielder who hits more. And I mean, there's various different options. I'm not getting my hopes way up. I mean, I've heard between Ben Nicholson Smith and Dan Schulman and people. I always say these people in the media, we might like their personalities, we might not like their personalities, but they're on the inside and they know more than most people do. They certainly know more than me. So when I hear guys talk like that, talking about, well, what do you do for on offense next season? Oh, believe it or not, what about Lourdes Gurriel Jr.? I'm like, don't don't kill the dream in front of me. And the same with even Teoscar Hernandez. So I'm not getting my hopes up that either of them would be coming back. I think it would be great because again, the Blue Jays last offseason, they traded for Dalton Varsho, but they had already signed Kevin Kiermaier. And this to me is what didn't make any sense because Kevin Kiermaier, for all of his career, has really been a glove first player. Then I had to look at Varsho's stats, and he looked like a glove first player. Like you have to be able to score runs as well as prevent runs in order to be able to win games. So I mean, to me, if they can bring Kiermaier back, if he's interested in coming back, if they can come to terms and have them in the mix, him in the mix, because let's face it, we've seen that he does need his time off. So he can
Mm,
be in there playing center field some of the time. And when he needs time off, then you've got an experienced outfielder who can play left field, who hits a little more. When Kiermaier doesn't play, then Varsho can play center field. And when Kiermaier and Varsho were both playing, then someone, whether it's Guriel Hernandez or somebody else, can be your DH. If Brandon Belt is going to retire, then you're going to have a spot there at DH anyway. So
yeah.
as far as your infield, I mean, I'm not necessarily handing third base and second base to Biggio and Espinal. They both had down seasons overall. They both played a lot better when they got more consistent playing time. And this is what kind of whets my appetite in that if they were to be, if it ended up that we're looking at your everyday third baseman and second baseman there in the two of them, it might not be a terrible outcome. I I don't know. I mean, there's other guys internally, as they say. Davis Schneider. Who is Davis Schneider? Well, he's probably not the historically hot hitter that he was when they first brought him up, nor is he hopefully the one who went 0 for 30 after that.
Right.
So who is the real Davis Schneider? Somewhere in between. The question is, where is there a good major league player in there? And if it's not Biggio or Espinal or Davis Schneider, how much of a look do they give someone like Orelvis Martinez, maybe Addison Berger? And then there's external additions there. So um,
Yeah.
and then as far as your rotation, I know a while back we talked about maybe having Ryu back as a fifth starter. I don't know about that. I mean, he was okay when he first came off the IL, but his last two or three starts, not that great, unfortunately.
Mm,
And I mean, again,
yeah.
I know your fifth starter doesn't necessarily have to be Cy Young per se, but to me, I'd rather someone with like a 4.5 ERA or better, someone who can at least keep the team in games, even if they're likely to give up 2 or 3 runs or whatever happens. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think the offseason is going to be fascinating just because for the last 2 years they've been bounced from the postseason. Excuse me, forthwith. Like there was no time wasted, and so you've got to build a team that has to make it further, right? Otherwise, I think there's got to be a lot of pressure, and the front office will never admit to pressure being anything as anything of consequence to them anyway. But there has to be better than this season, better than last season, and that's going to be a big challenge given the kind of the turnover that we could be seeing, right? So it'll be fascinating to watch. And we're almost out of time, and so I want to kind of get to our the important announcement here. But I will say this offseason is going to be fun. It's going to be worth paying attention to, whether or not it's Ross Atkins' last offseason or, whatever. He'll just be promoted to president of looking good in hair gel, just so that they can bring in somebody else. Maybe we'll
oh,
see.
do it now, do it now, do it now,
Just do it now.
please.
Just do it. But anyway, it is. I think it's a time, Karen. I keep trying to avoid it. You can tell I'm kind of like dragging this out a little bit. But so I guess folks may have noticed that we kind of took a little break here, and the coverage of Jays from the Couch is kind of, I don't want to say died off, but it's fizzled a bit, and we've I guess I've come to the place where I have to make the horrible decision, and we're kind of closing the doors at Jay's from the Couch. So this will be our last podcast, and it sucks. It sucks. It's hard for me to say. We've been doing this, Karen. I started this podcast even before Jay's from the Couch. Even started it at Jay's Journal when I was the I guess co-editor there with Keegan Matheson, and we saw record numbers there, and I said, you know what, I'm going to start my own, work for myself, and I did. That was 7 years ago, and it's been a ride. We've got a lot of fun doing this. I've had great opportunities to interview players, and Mark Shapiro was always good with his time as well, and it's something that excuse me, has become quite important. But as with everything, life happens, and things are just too busy, and the time and energy to really do this properly just isn't there. And so it's kind of, unfortunate, but this is where we are. And I want to thank so many people. I don't know how I'm gonna try and get through this. But first of all, I wrote some of these down, Karen, because anyway, I'm a mess right now. So first of all, David Meads, who has given us his photography free of charge. He's let us use his amazing work. You can find him on Facebook, Dave Me Images. He has excellent photography there of Blue Jays and stuff like that. I want to send a special thank you to Jason Rollison, who has passed away a few years ago, but he was the driving force in helping me get this started. And I've met a lot of great people along the way. Christian Rao and Billy Graves over at Slasher Sports. Keegan Matheson has always been really good to me. He and I started out together years and years ago, and Shai Davidi as well, who wrote the foreword for one of our books. Karen, we've written books, we've done podcasts, we've done a lot here at Jay's from the Couch, and I've met a lot of good people. But more importantly than that, I want to thank the people at Jay's from the Couch who trusted me to be their place for where they wanted their voices housed. So thank you to Jim Scott and Bob Ritchie for their work at Jay's from the Couch. Nobody does analytics and writing like Bob Ritchie does. I don't care where they are, where they're from, who they work for. Nobody does it like Bob Ritchie, and I'm honored that he would have Jay's from the Couch as his place to write. To Ryan Mueller, my brother from another mother, followed me, came to Jay's from the Couch with me, and has been a workhorse here at Jay's from the Couch every day, minor league recaps and stuff like that. And I deeply appreciate that. And of course, Karen and Steve have been a huge source of support for me, both personally and as, of course, doing this show as well. They trusted me to give them their own shows and to amplify their voices, and I was honored that they trusted me to do that. And I can't thank you enough for that. And Steve, get better, buddy. Please get better, because I know if he were listening right now, he would tell me I'm being a dope and that I should just work harder and not give up on Jay's from the Couch. But you know what? I would give anything to hear him say that. So get better, Steve, please. So yeah, Karen, there's a bunch of messages on the side here, and we're going to end with a piece of fake news, like always. But Karen, we're done. You know what I mean? Like, this is, it's sad. It sucks.
It does. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's bittersweet. Cue all the cliches. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. I mean, as much as you thanked everybody, I can never thank you enough for giving me a voice. And I came to you, a little under 5 years ago. I was looking on Twitter because what else would I do with my time, being addicted to it as it is? And I saw an ad for Jays from the Couch that you were looking for writers. And I thought, wow, the opportunity to write Jays from the Couch. Well, Jays is right in the name, so I guess they're focused on the Blue Jays. And as a baseball fan and someone who likes to write for a hobby, I focus on the Blue Jays. So you know what? Maybe there could be a fit there. And I threw my hat in the ring. I was very upfront about my relative lack of experience as a writer. I'd done a very little bit in the past, but nothing that much to speak of. And you took a chance on me, and it has been. I can't even express how much I have enjoyed having Jays from the Couch as a part of my life over the last 5 years. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you did. Don't ever doubt that you created something amazing here, because you really did.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And I think that that's the focus, right? Is that we started this, excuse me, just to be a place where everybody can come and talk about the Blue Jays, regardless of whether or not they are, completely analytics driven, or they have crazy trade ideas, or, they just want to rant about Ross Atkins and, call him a rodeo clown or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Like, that was the whole point of Jays from the Couch. And I think we did that. We had that in spades. I think we had lots of great viewers and listeners, like Ron. Special shout out to Ron on the site, who will comment and has commented on just about everything. That takes a lot of commitment on his part as well. So thank you for that, Ron. We may not have ever agreed. I don't know that we have. But it doesn't matter, because that wasn't the point. The point was to come out and talk Blue Jays, and you did that. So thank you, Ron. And others, Terry, for always correcting my grammatical mistakes that I missed. The editor, I appreciate it. Dolce, everybody who's returned to that comment section, thank you. And to people here watching live on YouTube, let's see. Rachel says, thank you, Jace from the Couch. Thank you, Sean, Karen. In fact, we love you very much. Thank you for all you have done for Lawson. That's right. Lawson was a guest multiple times on Steve's On Fact Circle show. Great job there. And so thank you for that message, Rachel. I appreciate that. New Brunswick, Canada guy, that makes me sad. A lot of great Jays podcasts are disappearing. It's tough. Like, one of the things that especially in Blue Jays land, I'll let the cat out of the bag. It's fine. There's so much coverage for the Toronto Blue Jays, and the big guys, they have more access. They do that for a living. We're all just doing it as a hobby. And so, it's a lot harder for an independent place like Jays from the Couch to get their foot in the door and have their voices and stuff heard. Right. So it's tough, but there are still lots of great places out there where you can find it and talk about your Blue Jays. And I think that's about it. I'm going to thank Dulcimeris and Rachel and New Brunswick, Canada guy, and everybody else who tunes in to our podcasts all the time. It means a lot. I'll just say that. But I'm not going to. I think that also, Dulcimeris, one more time. Is there a way to stay in touch with all of you? Enjoy us. Well, I don't know how to even finish that sentence. Thank you very much, Dulcimeris. I know Karen is on the Twitter machine, whatever it is now, whatever Elon Musk has done to it. So Karen will be on Twitter at Karen Sudar1. That's her name there. I'm taking a step back from social media completely. Taking actually a step out of my 17-year-old's playbook and taking a step back from social media. He is much happier, and as a result, has rubbed off on me. So I'm going to try the same thing. So, but don't worry. There's always a way to get in touch with everybody out there. But thank you for that, Dulcimeris. But we have to end on a positive note. Now, typically, our regular viewers and listeners will know that we always end with a fake news segment, and Dulcimerist has kindly contributed this, I guess, the very last fake news segment in Jays from the Couch history. It comes to you via Dulcimerist. Now you just kind of have to go with it a little bit because it is based on the winter meetings in December, but it's hilarious, so we're going to end with it. All right. So just pretend it's after the winter meetings in December. After continuously being called out by the logic and common sense of Buck Martinez in the press booth, Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro have reached their breaking point after Buck's comments regarding the playoff game debacles have outed their incompetence and lack of accountability once again. In retaliation, Atkins and Shapiro have rebuilt the Blue Jays roster with new acquisitions, having the sole purpose of making Buck's job as play-by-play announcer as miserable as possible. Let's face it, these clowns can't construct a winning roster anyway. So, in a flurry of trades and signings, the Blue Jays have acquired Tyler Wade, Taylor Ward, Taylor Walls, Tyler Wells, and Tyler Rogers, Taylor Rogers, and Trevor Rogers. Buck Martinez is not expected to make it through the first week of spring training. And this just in, Rogers Communication has given Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro bonuses totaling $1 million for the additional advertising they've provided the company by having the name Rogers in bold letters across the backs of 3 new Blue Jays players.
and don't forget about Buck Farmer. Whatever you do, don't transpose those initials.
Yeah. Oh, man. That was a great way to end that. Fake Blue Jays news brought to you by Dulcimerist. Thank you so much for that. All right, Karen, this is it. We're at the end of episode number 336. This is the 336th time I've done this. And it's probably the hardest. So thank you, Karen, for everything you have done for Jays from the Couch. And thank you for being one of the good people out there, both just in Blue Jays land, but also just in the world. Thank you for being you. And I'm honored that we have become friends. And thank you for everything.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. I can never adequately express how much it's meant to me, and it's been a big part of my life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So,
well, vice versa. And thank you to everybody who's checked into Jays from the Couch. We will notice that over the next little while, the site will still be up and running and things like that, but it will come to an end eventually. As far as it may start up again, if life presents the opportunity, we may get the band back together. Who knows? Never say never. But as for right now, one last time, this is Sean Doyle. Hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle, and you don't miss it. Take care.